Hey, welcome to Sifting for Soul, vlog number 2, part 3, night shots. You've made it this far. In part 1, you heard me talk about my thoughts and feelings about getting past things that are daunting. In part 2, you heard me talk about operating the camera. If I'm going to use photography as a tool, I need to learn how to properly use the tool to produce the effect I want. And now part 3, we apply it all and come out with a beautiful shot. Even if your shot isn't beautiful, you've come a long way, you've learned a lot, and you're going to continue to make progress. So as always, let's get it. There are a few things that I'll probably try tonight that I haven't already covered in a previous video. Not those kind of things. Well, I mean, I could try those kind of things, but not in this video. I mean, never mind. You know what I'm saying. There's a few photography things I might try tonight. One of those things is HDR. HDR is high dynamic range. And sometimes I use that when there's a lot of additional light, so I can't get my shutter speed low enough, even with a narrow aperture of f/22, and with a really low ISO at f/100, my shutter speed will be like 10 seconds because there's so much additional light. So I'll use HDR and sometimes underexposed by one stop. And then what that gives me is the final shot will have a combination of the shutter speed for normal exposure. If it's say 10 seconds, and I use one stop for HDR, then it'll do a shutter speed for one stop underexposed, which would be 5 seconds, and then a shutter speed for one stop overexposed, which will be 20 seconds. So it does all three, and then we'll combine them in body. And so the reason I do that is because I want to get streaky lights. And then in my camera, it does in-body HDR processing really well, really effectively. So I do vivid, so I get a lot of stronger colors from that. So we'll consider doing that as we see what we get with the exposure settings. So it's a cold night. I don't know if you can see my breath, but I can. We're at Waterloo Place, right down the street from Piccadilly Circus, which is behind me. And as promised, we're going to practice some night shots. Fortunately for us, they've got the Christmas lights up, so we'll get a good chance to practice some of the techniques I already gave you and see what we can come up with. Got lots of traffic because it's London, bruv. And so we're going to get some streaky lights as well. So I'm going to get set up and then walk you through taking a night shot, given the stuff I've already told you. Cool, so we're basically set up. So I've got my Mi Photo tripod. It doesn't matter what tripod you use. I just like this one because I can pull it out and close it up really quickly, and it was at the price point that I wanted to pay for it. I'll give you the exact model if you're interested in gear. And got the camera all set up. I'm using the tilt shift lens because this is really tall and I want to use the shift feature to get all of that in. And then if you come around here, you can look at the back of the camera and see what we got set up. So all the stuff that I talked to you about previously, we're in manual mode, and we've got a 20-second exposure, f/22, and as you can see, according to the camera, that's properly exposed. I generally like to underexpose just a little bit because I find that my highlights get blown out if I don't, and then I'm waiting for the traffic to move a little bit. Okay, so at 13 seconds being underexposed, I'm actually going to get a little creative and go into HDR mode so that I can get a longer exposure out of this. Now, one thing with this tilt shift lens that I do have to do is I have to manually focus. And so I'm going to pick something that I want to manually focus on, punch in on it, not the bus. Let's do like something like that. Looks good. Maybe punch in again. I'm focusing on the street. That looks pretty good to me. Now this composition isn't amazing, but we're going to give it a shot and see what we get. I've got a 2-second delay in here, and so that's so I can eliminate the camera shake.
and we'll come back and take a look at that. So we got some really great stuff. So underexposing by one stop worked really well. I'm quite pleased with how that came out. It depends on the camera. It depends on your aesthetic. I like my night shots underexposed just a little bit because it keeps my highlights from getting blown out. And so I'm gonna put this up in the video so you can see it in real time. If you're really curious about how I edit these shots, I will show you later. I also like HDR. I did HDR on purpose because I wanted to recover some of the shadows, but I also did it because my shutter speed wasn't quite long enough for what I was after. What I like is really streaky lights on it, and so if I underexpose by one stop, that only gives me about a 13-second exposure when I really like to be about 20 seconds on up to 30 seconds or more, so I can get the really nice streaky lights on the cars. And so that's what I got using HDR as well.
That's basically it. I mean, you've got my secrets to night shooting. I always use a tripod. I use the narrowest aperture I can. I use ISO 100. But I adjust. I mean, those are sort of the guidelines, the rails, but I'll adjust accordingly. Like if I need to have a shorter shutter speed, then maybe I boost the ISO to 200. I generally don't boost it more than 400. I'll go into bulb mode to use a longer exposure, etc., etc. I can show you videos on how to do these specific things. If you're interested, put it in the comments and I'll help you get sorted. And it doesn't really matter what gear you use. Like, when you're starting out, you can hardly tell the difference anyway, so you can take an amazing shot just by understanding these techniques and applying them toward the effect that you're trying to produce. So good luck. Feel free to post some of your shots and let me know how you did. And if you have questions, if I can help you, I will. Yeah, thanks for watching.